Hi, how's it going? Okay, I don't know what just happened there. I got popped out, so this will be part B of glitch. Anyway, Crown is not going to tell people about anything that's not already in existence. Like, whatever potential futures he may be aware of, you know, however many possible, oh God, what is the word I want to say? I can't think of it. Timelines, whatever possible, future timelines there are, he's not going to say anything about anything that's not already basically in the works. So, among a lot of other things he said, it was the sound therapy, which there's a treatment which I so wish I could get, but because of the way things are in my country, America, if you don't have money and you're not in the right place at the right time, you don't get access to a lot of things. Like, I have overactive bladder. I know, too much information, but I'm bringing it up because there is a treatment. And I've been told by my doctors here there's no medication except for like ones that temporarily decrease symptoms somewhat in my case. And maybe they work a lot better for other people. But the doctor I see basically told me that you will develop a tolerance and then you'll have to switch back to your original med, because I was there to get something else because the original med just weren't living up to its potential and it wasn't making my life any easier. But the thing is that he said that there's no like surgery I could have done, and the two medications that he offered me were, what there was. But on my own, through looking at the interwebs, I learned that in California, at UCLA, in my hometown of Los Angeles, there is a treatment, and they do it in some portion. I don't know what the exact manner of the treatment is, but it's basically sound vibration therapy. So I don't know if they like put a speaker next to your bladder or what and just blast some some bass beats or what. But it's in LA, it's at UCLA, so I'm not in California. That would be an expense to get there. I don't have money, and UCLA, when I got sick originally with my 4 brain tumors that I still have because they're inoperable because of their location in my brain, I couldn't afford to go to the actual UCLA because there was no insurance in 1991 for people that didn't have it with their job. Sorry about those fingers. And, it's just a big expense thing. And then, like, for me to go there, I would have to find somewhere to be. And, I have mobility issues, so I have mobility devices, and it's like a whole thing. It would be expensive for me to go down there and be able to stay somewhere and then to be able to afford this treatment. So anyway, that's enough about that in the crayon. But that's what in the show I got excited about. It was like, oh my God, they're talking about this thing that Crayon I heard talking about 2 years ago. Awesome. Okay, so in the course of the show, more people end up coming to life. And well, let me talk about Patty for a second, who ends up becoming the mayor. Patty originally was like this opportunist, scammer, sort of war opportunist guy, because war apparently, I think it was the Great War, so World War I was still happening, and soldiers from Australia were, in Europe and in Africa and all kinds of places. And I think it was still happening in the part that they show where he's young, way before he becomes mayor. But you see that he's basically like a bootlegger and a opium runner and just like kind of an unsavory guy. But he ends up becoming wealthy and powerful in the little society in Urana, and works his way to being mayor. And it's interesting because the young man who found people in the first place, Bo Cooper, we find is his distant relative. Just distant because of how many years are between Patty the original and Patty the resurrected in this kid. But he is the great, maybe 5 times a great grandson of Patty. What the heck's his name? Fitzgerald. God, I'm bad at this. Well, anyway, it's a whole thing. I mean, it talks about family and, you know, intersections between family that you don't even expect. And with the two of them, Bo Cooper, the 5 times great grandson of Patty Fitzgerald, go to Patty's original home, mayoral home, I think, and it's a mansion pretty much. And Patty is going there to look for some piece of treasure, and he can't exactly remember quite what it is, but it turns out that it is the thing that links them familially, family-wise, links Patty and Bo Cooper, and that is the affair that he had with a local indigenous woman who became one of the house servants. And it is also the reason why Patty ends up dead, because his white family are like, oh, no, it's bueno, you can't be doing it with the help, and she's black, and, you know, just look to our own slave to white history here in America, and you kind of get the total vibe of what happened there. But the wife and the younger son, well, the older son of Patty ends up, with wifey's approval apparently, killing Patty, because yes, he had an affair, and yes, it was with the help, and racial blah 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 about it. Still sucks though. I mean, they pretty much colluded on murdering the guy. But so, you know, fast forward to the now in the story, Patty and Bo go to the house. And so first they find the house empty, and then these young men come home, and they are, at least one of them is Patty's distant relative, white relative. And first they find Bo Cooper in the house, because he's sort of slinking halfway between upstairs of this place where Patty's rooting around in the framework looking for some kind of treasure box. And, you know, the boys come home, and, you know, this kid doesn't know what to do, but I think he has moved from the stairs where he's kind of like freaking out and like, what are you doing up there? Hurry up, come on, we gotta get out of here. There's people that's like live here now. And he has like moved to a den and found like video games and evidence of drinking, like in the form of empty bottles, and there's a bong and other paraphernalia-ish type things. And then before he can hide himself, the people who all the stuff belongs to come home, and they are also distant relatives of Patty, but they're the white side of the family. But because this kid, Bo Cooper, is like, you know, he's basically a pretty good kid, and he doesn't want to like give it up, like why he's in that house and if there's anyone with him, because how's he going to explain Patty? And I don't think that either of them, Patty or Bo, realized at that point that they're related to these people that came home to the house, and, you know, that they're related to each other. I think maybe by the time they break into the house, they may have worked out that they're related. I don't know. But that's just one side of the story, and that's like such an interesting little trail of it. And then one of the other things is James Hayes' wife, Officer James Hayes' now wife, is a woman named Sarah. And Sarah was the best friend of Kate Willis. So, you know, Kate wakes up, eventually realizes like, oh, this is who I was, and I want to go back to my house. So I believe she's running from the evil company, and of course there's always got to be one, and that's where the paranoia part comes in, that Alicia McKellar, Alicia McKellar is a part of, and has directed the experiments and knows about, and she's also one of the resurrected herself. So she pretty much like, I think that she used the sound therapy to raise these people, to resurrect them, so that she could examine them. And I guess there's like health reasons. Those are my air quotes. For doing this, like zombification of people. That's like pretty small in the story. It ends up just being a case of greedy company wanting to make money at any expense and won't lie to anybody and say anything to anybody to, you know, warp them into doing what we want so we can continue doing what we want to them and profiting at it as well. So at the clinic, people are beginning to remember who they are and ask questions about, like, why is this happening? And some of them, it gets really convoluted. I can't tell if these people are like from space originally or just been around on Earth forever and ever. They don't really like clear that up. But like Alicia McKellar, she is resurrected herself. Only the company that she works for, called, oh my God, what it's called, I'm just gonna spell it so I didn't bring anything to write with in here. N-O-R-E-G-A-R-D, No Regard. But they don't call it No Regard, but they call it Norgard, okay? The first time I saw it, I was like, oh, No Regard, huge company manipulating people physically with their literal lives and not telling them jack doodly squat or, you know, anything really. Oh, I told you it was convoluted. So, No Regard. No Regard. Really? Really? So, the company No Regard has hired, you know, this is of course secret to everybody else, to have McKellar go out into the community and raise these people and do experiments on them. And, well, you know how that goes. Think of the Tuskegee Airmen, little, you know, big corporation countries like ours and apparently Australia, in real life and in fake life, do these things, like use their own people. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine they've done some horrible things to the indigenous people there. So, yeah, No Regard, of course. Makes total sense. So, Alicia McKellar gets hired up by them to run these experiments. And the company doesn't even know, like, she's resurrected. They don't even know, like, what could happen, why it could happen, who is what. It is just awesome. There's a whole other big cast. Let me see here. In the show. I mean, it is big. I'm just going to show you. And it's here. I don't know how clear this is for you. But all of these people are part of the cast, okay? That's kind of a lot of people for a little bitty town with, you know, 4 or 5 interwoven stories common to all of them. But, you know, people gradually start to remember bits and pieces of who they are. Another thing I wanted to point out about Australian broadcasting company, ABC, from now on I'm just going to say ABC, I hope you can follow my ramblings. They have their, you know, cast of characters, basically, that they use and reuse. And Aaron L. McGrath, Bo Cooper, the Indigenous actor, and then also, let's see if I can, well, I can't find them all. I'm not doing this very well as far as being organized, and I hope that my sort of fumbling about is entertaining to you as it is to me. But there are 3 Indigenous actors that show up a couple of times in the shows that I'm going to talk about in this Paranoia series. And let me find these people. So one of them plays Bo Cooper's mom, so obviously she's going to also be an Indigenous, and by Indigenous I mean an Aboriginal, which you know, in another show that I'll be talking about, they refer to themselves as the Arete, A-R-E-T-E, I believe, or Arete. They only say it like once or twice, so I'll do better, I promise, on the next ones. But, shoot, I can't remember which actress plays the mother. So I can't just look at this thing real quick and tell you, but I'll tell you that the stepfather, not Bo's father, I don't think, but the stepfather is another indigenous actor called Rob Collins. And he's, I've actually seen him in like a lot of other stuff that's, I don't think, Australian in origin. And because of his appearance, he can, you know, be a number of different races. He could be like Indian from India. He could be Latino, maybe. He could be from the Middle East. He's dark and he has black hair, and, you know, I mean, with a little imagination, his appearance and origin could be very changeable. So, Rob Collins. And, damn it. What is the woman's name? Sorry for these lulls. Oh, I can't remember her name. It'll come up in the future. I'll put it together a little bit more cohesively. But she is the third indigenous actor that appears in a couple of these other shows, as well as Rob Collins and Aaron L. McGrath. And I think that that's awesome, that they're in these shows and are so prominent in the world of acting, at least in the ABC network galaxy, let's call it. So, what ends up happening is one of the people that wakes up, and she's, I think, in like the second wave of people that are resurrected, and it's a girl, and the character's name is Kirsty. And Kirsty ends up, you end up finding out that she is killed by someone that took advantage of her when she was a youth, and she was just like, you know, a small town and nothing to do. And you could be in a big town and you're a certain age, and there's a limited amount of things that you can do with your time. So in this instance, she's in a small town. She's a young teenage girl, follows like all of the teenage girl tropes of life and fiction. You know, she's bored, she likes boys, she likes to drink beer. She likes beer. Sorry, that was a Justice Kavanaugh smear. I like beer. SMH. Anyway, she and her friend find these older guys, and they're like the footy, which is soccer in Australia, stars of the town, and they're like big turds in a small toilet. What can I tell you? That's a terrible analogy, but you have it, so there we go. And she ends up being raped and eventually killed by this guy. And here's a twist for you. The guy is the brother of Officer Hayes's co-worker, another policeman in the small town, who is, oh, come on, where'd you go? He's, Chris Renix. And his brother is, well, I can't find him, but he's a creep, and he's a weirdo, and he's terrible, and he ends up killing this girl, Kirsty. And, in the show, you find out in current times that he now is, like, stuck in a wheelchair, because I guess he's been in a car accident or something. Something knocks him crazy, and he's not all there. And then, oh my goodness, he ends up in the show, Kirsty, you know, is, like, hiding from no regard, and she's at Chris Renix's house, the officer, and she's there being protected. She and Charlie, who's another resurrected guy, and she gets into a fight with him, and he's in one of those, I believe, paraplegic or quadriplegic chairs. Well, I think he's a paraplegic. I think he can use his hands. But he's in this pretty, like, extravagant chair, and their house, the house that he shares with his brother Chris, has they're upstairs, so, you know, Kirsty and Charlie, who become best friends in the show, are out on the porch smoking, and then she's flipping out because she realizes, like, oh my God, here's the guy that friggin' killed me, and he escapes all, like, responsibility because now he's a phoebe in a chair. Those are my words. And, they get into a fight on the porch, and she ends up, I think he's, like, trying to get away from her with the chair, and he ends up driving himself off the porch and down the stairs and killing himself. But then he resurrects. Like, I lost the thread on this, but at some point it just starts happening, and they don't need to be, like, forcibly resurrected, or they don't need someone to come along and do it for them. And so he falls down, and he resurrects, and he wakes up, and he remembers everything, and he's whole, and he's able, and he can move around. Like, he's, like, you know, atrophied muscles and whatever, but he goes right back to being a nasty MFer that he was when he, like, killed this girl. And what does he want to do as soon as he gets his senses back? He wants to go find her and kill her again. It's just like, the brother ends up taking care of that and putting an end to it right away, because he was like, he was duped as a child. He was used to, like, cause this other guy to take the fall for the rape and murder of Kirsty initially, and the guy was her boyfriend, but he didn't do any of those things to her. And I'm telling you, man, it's a very much a ramen story, like, just all kinds of, you know, twists and turns that are interrelated and connected, and it is just awesome. And I don't know, like, if this is a good review for the watcher, for the viewer or not, but